You think the deadliest things in the world are guns, bombs, or even natural disasters. Let me paint you a picture, one that is etched into my brain. Every single day I step into the lab. Close your eyes and imagine medieval Europe. Villages where no one is left to bury the dead. Bodies stacked in the streets like discarded rags. The stench of rot hanging thick in the air. That is the Black Death. 70% mortality rate. 200 million lives erased. A plague that turned civilizations into graveyards. And then there is smallpox. The silent killer that claimed 300 to 500 million lives before it was eradicated. 90% of those infected died, their skin covered in lesions that oozed and scarred, their bodies succumbing to a virus that had no mercy. As a pathologist, you do not just read about these horrors. You stare at their genetic blueprints, at the microscopic remnants of what once destroyed humanity. You hold pieces of that destruction in your gloved hands, and you realize something terrifying. The deadliest weapons are not man-made. They are invisible. They are patient. They are waiting to strike when you least expect it. Here is the bombshell, one that even most medical professionals get wrong. The deadliest virus on Earth, with a mortality rate approaching 100%, is not Ebola. It is not Marburg. It is not even the newly mutated strains we are fighting in the lab. It is rabies, or lyssavirus. The virus that is hiding in the saliva of a stray dog on the street, in the bite of a bat in a cave, in the scratch of a fox in the woods. You have seen the movies. Someone gets bitten. They foam at the mouth, and they die within hours. But that is not the real horror. The real horror is how it hunts you. It does not race through your bloodstream, like Ebola causing immediate chaos. No, rabies is a strategist. It first burrows into your muscles, replicating quietly, almost invisibly, for days or weeks. Then, it slips into the nearby nerve endings and starts climbing, not fast, slowly, methodically, at a rate of 50 to 100 millimeters every single day, up your spinal cord, straight toward your brain. It is like a killer in the dark, inching closer, and you have no idea it is there. Let us talk about the incubation period. The average is 1 to 3 months, long enough to make you forget you were ever bitten. But in Brazil, there was a case that still keeps me up at night. A man was bitten by a stray dog. The wound healed. He went on with his life, got married, had a child, built a career. 8 years later, he started having headaches, then muscle spasms. Then he could not swallow. By the time he got to the hospital, it was too late. The rabies had finally reached his brain, and there was nothing we could do. He died 3 days later, fully conscious, knowing exactly what was happening to him. That is the anti-intuitive horror of rabies. It does not kill you quickly. It lets you live, lets you forget, lets you build a life, only to yank it away, slowly and cruelly, when you least expect it. You walk around, thinking you are safe, but the clock is ticking, invisible, silent, unstoppable. You are sitting at your lab bench now, staring at a slide of rabies virus particles. They look harmless, tiny, bullet-shaped structures, barely visible even under a high-powered microscope. But you know what they are capable of. You know that one single particle, entering your bloodstream through a tiny cut, could start that slow, deadly climb. Your gloved fingers tap the slide, and you feel a bead of sweat form on your forehead. Not because you are hot, but because you are suddenly hyper-aware of every scratch on your hands, every small wound that has ever healed. Did you clean that cut properly last week? Was that stray cat that brushed against your leg carrying something? The paranoia creeps in, slow and cold, like the virus itself. You try to shake it off, but it sticks, because you know the truth. The deadliest assassin is not loud. It is quiet. It is patient. It is already inside the room with you. Level 1 complete. 30% of you cannot handle the invisible ticking clock. Welcome to level 2. Let us look at what your own body can do. Before you can fight the monsters outside, you have to face the monsters within. As a pathologist, you spend your days studying disease. But sometimes, the most terrifying things are not viruses or bacteria. They are the human body itself, turning against its owner in ways that defy logic, that break every rule of biology you thought you knew. You think you control your body. Think again. Your genes, your cells, your own immune system, they can betray you slowly and irrevocably, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. Let us start with FOP, fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva, or stone man syndrome. 1 in 2 million people are born with this genetic curse. Imagine watching a patient, someone young, someone full of life, slowly turn to stone. Their immune system, which is supposed to protect them, mistakes their soft tissue, muscles, tendons, ligaments, for foreign invaders. It attacks, depositing bone in place of flesh. First, their joints lock up. Then, their arms and legs become rigid, impossible to move. Eventually, their chest cavity hardens, making it impossible to breathe. They are trapped in a prison of their own bones, fully conscious, watching as their body turns against them. There is no cure, no treatment, just slow, inevitable petrification. You sit by their bed, taking notes, and you realize the human body is not a machine. It is a ticking time bomb, waiting to malfunction. But FOP is just the start. Let us talk about Brewery Syndrome, the human brewery disease. Imagine a patient who never drinks alcohol, but wakes up every morning with a blood alcohol level high enough to get them arrested for drunk driving. Their gut is colonized by yeast that has gone rogue, turning every carbohydrate they eat, bread, pasta, even fruit, into pure alcohol. They stumble through their day, confused, disoriented, their liver slowly failing, and they have no idea why. You run test after test until you find it. The yeast is fermenting inside them, turning their body into a brewery. There is no easy fix. They have to avoid all carbs for the rest of their life or risk permanent liver damage. Then there is progeria, Hutchinson-Gilford progeria syndrome. Children born with this condition age 50 times faster than normal. A 10-year-old looks like a 50-year-old. Their hair falls out. Their skin wrinkles. Their arteries harden. Most die by the age of 13 from heart attacks or strokes, diseases of old age. In a child's body, you hold a 7-year-old's hand, and their skin feels like parchment. You look into their eyes, and you see wisdom beyond their years, and fear. They know they are dying, and they do not understand why. How do you explain that to a child? How do you tell them their own genes are betraying them? And then there is the mind, the most fragile part of all. You spend your days staring into the abyss of human suffering, and eventually, the abyss stares back. You start studying cases of psychological breakdown, of the mind betraying the body in ways that are even more terrifying than physical disease. Take Cotard's syndrome, walking corpse syndrome. Patients with this rare disorder are convinced they are dead. They believe their organs are rotting, their blood is cold, their skin is decaying. Some stop eating because they think a dead person does not need food. Some hurt themselves, trying to prove they cannot feel pain, because dead people do not feel anything. You sit across from a patient who tells you calmly that they are already in the grave. Their eyes are empty, their voice flat. They do not cry. They do not beg for help. They just accept their death as a fact. Then there is Ondine's curse, central hypoventilation syndrome. Patients with this condition forget to breathe when they sleep. Their brain, which is supposed to regulate breathing automatically, shuts down. They stop breathing, their oxygen levels drop, and they wake up gasping for air every single night. Imagine falling asleep, knowing that if you do not wake up on your own, you will suffocate. Imagine living in constant fear that your own brain will betray you the moment you close your eyes. You are in your office now, going through case files. The photos of the FOP patient, their body twisted and rigid. The blood test results of the Brewery Syndrome patient, alcohol levels off the charts. The face of the progeria child, wise beyond their years. The notes from the Cotard's patient, written in shaky handwriting. I am dead. Please bury me. You feel a cold chill run down your spine. You have spent your career believing in science, in logic, in the idea that we can understand and control the human body. But now, you are not so sure. If the body can turn to stone, if the gut can turn into a brewery, if the mind can convince itself it is dead, what else can it do? What if your own body is betraying you right now, and you just do not know it? The doubt creeps in, replacing the confidence you once had. You reach for your coffee, and your hand shakes. Not because you are tired, but because you are starting to realize the most dangerous enemy is not outside. It is inside. It is you. Level 2, complete. The fragility of human existence just broke another 25%. Welcome to Level 3. Time to suit up. You stand in front of the BSL-4 lab door, staring at the sign, maximum containment. No exit until decontamination. This is where the monsters live. The viruses that have no cure, no treatment. The ones that can kill you in days, or hours, or minutes. Before you can step inside, you have to put on your armor, the positive pressure suit. It weighs 40 pounds, heavy and cumbersome, made of 3 layers of thick rubber and reinforced fabric. You slip your arms into the sleeves, zip it up, fasten the hood around your neck, and secure the face shield. The air compressor kicks on, and you hear a loud, constant whirring in your ears, the sound of filtered air being pumped into the suit, keeping you safe from the airborne killers inside. But safety comes at a price. The suit is airtight, suffocating. Your skin sweats, but you cannot wipe it away. Your hands are encased in 3 layers of rubber gloves, so thick you can barely feel the tools in your hands. Your vision is limited by the face shield, which fogs up every time you breathe. You are not a person anymore. You are a walking, breathing tank, trapped in a prison of your own protection. You step inside the lab, and the door locks behind you with a loud click. The room is sterile, white, cold, no windows, no natural light, just the hum of ventilation systems and the whir of your suit. You walk to your bench, where a vial of Nipah virus sits in a biohazard container. Nipah virus, 50% mortality rate, and it is airborne. You remember the 1999 outbreak in Malaysia. Pig farmers started getting sick, fever, headaches, seizures. Within weeks, 105 people were dead. The virus had jumped from pigs to humans. And once it got into a community, it spread like wildfire. Then there was the 2001 outbreak in Siliguri, India. 75% of the cases were people who had just visited the same hospital. They did not touch anyone, did not share food or water. They just breathed the same air. That is the terror of Nipah. It does not need direct contact. It floats in the air, invisible, waiting to be inhaled. You pick up the vial, your gloved hands fumbling slightly. Your fingers are numb from the thick rubber. You hold it up to the light, and you see the clear liquid inside, just a few milliliters. But if that vial breaks, if even a single drop splatters on your suit, if there is a tiny tear you cannot see, you are dead. Or worse, you become a carrier, spreading the virus to everyone you come into contact with. But Nipah is just the warm-up. On the other side of the bench, there is another vial, one that scares me more than any other. H5N1, avian influenza, 54% mortality rate. A virus that normally only affects birds, but can jump to humans. But this is not the natural strain. This is a genetically modified version created in a lab by scientists who wanted to understand how it could become airborne. They altered its genes, and now it can spread between ferrets, animals whose immune systems are nearly identical to humans, through the air. You hold that vial in your hand, and you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders. This is not just a virus. This is a Pandora's box. If it leaks, if it escapes the lab, it could trigger a pandemic worse than the Spanish flu. Millions would die. Cities would shut down. Civilization would teeter on the edge of collapse. And it is in your hands, your numb, gloved hands. You have to perform a precise dissection under the microscope, separating the virus particles from the host cells. One wrong move, one slip of the hand, and it is over. Your breath quickens, and the face shield fogs up even more. You cannot see clearly. You cannot feel the tools. You are trapped in your armor, surrounded by invisible killers, and the weight of responsibility is crushing you. Then it happens. Your cheek itches, not a small itch, an intense, burning itch, like a mosquito bite that will not go away. You reach up with your gloved hand, ready to scratch, but you stop. You freeze, because you remember you cannot touch your face, not with these gloves, not in this lab. If you scratch, you could tear the suit. You could create a tiny opening, big enough for a virus to slip through. So you let it itch. You let the burning sensation spread from your cheek to your forehead to your neck. You clench your teeth, your jaw tight, and you keep working. The itch gets worse, so bad you want to scream. But you do not. You cannot, because in here, screaming wastes oxygen. It distracts you. It could cost you your life. You look down at the vial in your hand, and you realize this is what it means to be a BSL-4 virologist. You do not just fight viruses. You fight your own body. You fight the urge to scratch, to breathe, to escape. You fight the paranoia that creeps in telling you that your suit is leaking, that you are already infected. You fight to stay focused, to stay calm, to stay alive. Level 3 complete. 20% of you drop the vial in your mind. Welcome to Level 4. The storm is here. You have made it this far. You have faced the invisible ticking clock of rabies. You have witnessed the betrayal of the human body. You have survived the suffocating armor of the BSL-4 lab. But now, we are going to talk about what happens if you fail. If the suit tears, if the vial breaks, if the virus gets in. You are a top virologist, so you know exactly what is coming. You know every detail of the destruction that will happen to your body. And that is the worst part. You are not going to die in ignorance. You are going to die knowing exactly what is happening to you, every step of the way. Let us start with Marburg. Marburg virus, first identified in 1967, when lab workers in Marburg, Germany, were exposed to infected monkey tissue. The mortality rate is up to 83%, but it is not the virus itself that kills you, it is your own immune system. When Marburg enters your body, it attacks your cells, replicating rapidly. Your brain, in a desperate attempt to save you, triggers a cytokine storm, a nuclear explosion of the immune system. Cytokines are the chemicals that tell your immune cells to fight. But in a cytokine storm, your brain releases too many, way too many. Your immune system goes into overdrive, attacking not just the virus, but your own body. It tears apart your blood vessels, causing them to leak. Your organs start to fail. You bleed from your eyes, your nose, your mouth, every orifice in your body. You go into septic shock, your blood pressure plummeting, your heart struggling to pump, and you are fully conscious for most of it. You feel the blood dripping down your face. You feel your organs shutting down. You know you are dying, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. Ebola is similar. Ebola virus, ZEBOV, with a mortality rate of up to 90%. It causes the same cytokine storm, the same bleeding, the same organ failure, but there is something about rabies that is even more terrifying. We talked about it in level 1, the slow climb to the brain. But what happens when it gets there? When rabies reaches your brain, it hijacks your nervous system. It takes control of your body, turning you into a puppet. First, you get headaches, fever, confusion. Then, your autonomic nervous system goes haywire. You salivate uncontrollably. Drool runs down your chin, thick and foamy. Your eyes tear up, but you cannot stop it. And then comes the worst part, hydrophobia. Not a fear of water, a physical inability to drink. When you try to take a sip of water, or even when you feel a breeze on your throat, the muscles in your pharynx go into violent, uncontrollable spasms. You choke, you gag, you cannot breathe. It is like your own body is trying to kill you, to prevent you from drinking. Why? Because the virus wants you to spread it. It makes you salivate more, and it makes it impossible for you to swallow. So when you bite someone or spit, the virus spreads. You are fully conscious through all of this. You know you are being controlled by a virus. You know you are going to die. And you cannot even drink water to soothe your parched throat. You are trapped in your own body, watching as it turns against you. And you are powerless to stop it. If that is not enough, let us talk about the flesh-eating bacteria, necrotizing fasciitis. It is a bacterial infection that invades your soft tissue, dissolving muscle and skin at a rate of inches per H-hour. You get a small cut, and within hours the skin around it turns red, then purple, then black. The pain is excruciating, like fire running through your veins. You can feel the bacteria eating you alive, spreading through your body, destroying everything in its path. Doctors have to amputate limbs to stop it, but sometimes even that is not enough. Or there is the guinea worm, Dracunculus medinensis. The female worm grows up to 3 feet long inside your abdomen, mates, then burrows through your skin, usually in your leg, creating a painful blister. When the blister bursts, the worm starts to emerge, inch by inch, over weeks. The pain is so intense that people often immerse their legs in water to soothe it, which is exactly what the worm wants. When the worm comes into contact with water, it releases its larvae, ready to infect the next person. You have to pull the worm out slowly, carefully, a little bit each day. If you pull too hard, it breaks, and the remaining part inside your body causes a fatal infection. Imagine sitting there every day, pulling a 3-foot worm out of your leg, knowing that one wrong move could kill you. You are sitting in the decontamination room now. After a long day in the lab, you are taking off your suit, layer by layer, checking for tears, for scratches, for any sign that the virus might have gotten in. Your hands are shaking, not from fatigue, but from the images in your head, the cytokine storm, the hydrophobia, the flesh-eating bacteria. You know that if any of those things happen to you, you will be the one on the table, the one being studied, the one whose body is betraying them. You know every detail of your own death, should it come. You know how much it will hurt, how terrifying it will be, how powerless you will feel. That is the cognitive torment of being a virologist. You do not just fear death, you understand it. You can visualize every step of your own destruction, and that knowledge does not make it easier. It makes it worse. It haunts you day and night. You look in the mirror, and you see a target, a vessel, a potential host. You wonder, when will it happen? Will it be today? Tomorrow? Will you die in the lab, surrounded by the viruses you have spent your life fighting? Or will it be something simpler? A stray dog bite, a small cut, a moment of carelessness. Level 4, complete. 15% of you could not face your own physiological destruction. Welcome to Level 5, the event. You have been in the BSL-4 lab for 8 hours. 8 hours of suffocating armor. 8 hours of the constant whirring of the air compressor. 8 hours of staring at microscopic virus particles. 8 hours of fighting the urge to scratch, to breathe, to escape. Your concentration is fraying. Your eyes are burning from the face shield, which has not stopped fogging up. Your hands are numb from the gloves. Your back aches from the weight of the suit. You are tired, exhausted, mentally and physically. But you cannot stop. You are in the middle of processing a sample of the genetically modified H5N1, the Pandora's box. The sample is fragile, precious, dangerous. One wrong move, and it is over. You hold a sharp microscalpel in your gloved hand, ready to make a precise cut in the host cell. Your hands are shaking, just a little, but enough to make you nervous. You take a deep breath, trying to steady yourself. The air in the suit is hot, stale, filled with the smell of your own sweat. You focus on the microscope, on the tiny cell, on the task at hand. You move the scalpel forward, slow and steady. And then you feel it, a slight, almost imperceptible tug. The scalpel brushes against the outer layer of your glove. You freeze. Your heart stops. For a split second, everything goes quiet. The whirring of the air compressor fades. The hum of the ventilation system disappears. All you can hear is your own heartbeat, pounding in your ears. Thump, thump, thump. You slowly lower the scalpel. You hold your breath, and then you hear it. A faint, high-pitched hiss, so quiet, so subtle. You almost think you are imagining it, but you are not. You know that sound. Every BSL-4 virologist knows that sound. It is the sound of air leaking from a positive pressure suit. It is the sound of death. You hold your breath, listening again. There it is, faint, but unmistakable. A tiny hissing sound, coming from your left wrist where the scalpel brushed against your glove. You slowly move your right hand to your left wrist, your gloved fingers fumbling. You press down gently, and the hissing stops for a second. Then, it starts again. Quieter, but still there. You know what that means. There is a tear, a tiny tear, maybe a millimeter long in the outer layer of your glove, or maybe in the suit itself. You cannot see it, you cannot feel it, but you can hear it. The air is leaking out, which means the viruses are leaking in. You are in the lab, surrounded by airborne Nipah, by genetically modified H5N1, by viruses that can kill you in days. And now, there is a tiny opening in your armor, a crack in your protection, a single tear that means death. Your mind races. You have two choices. Option 1, hit the red alarm. The alarm will sound. The lab will lock down. You will be rushed to the decontamination shower, where you will spend 20 minutes scrubbing every inch of your body, trying to wash away any virus that might have gotten in. Then, you will be put into isolation. 14 days of solitary confinement, waiting to see if you develop symptoms. 14 days of not seeing your family, your friends, of wondering if you are going to die. 14 days of fear, of paranoia, of knowing that every headache, every fever, every cough could be the start of the end. Option 2, do nothing. Pretend you did not hear it. Pretend it is just a hallucination, a product of your exhaustion. Keep working, finish processing the sample. But if it is not a hallucination, if there really is a tear, then you are already infected. You will start to feel symptoms in days. You will experience the cytokine storm, the hydrophobia, the organ failure. You will die a slow, painful death. And worse, you could spread the virus to everyone you come into contact with after you leave the lab, your colleagues, your family, your friends. You could be the one to trigger a pandemic. The pressure is crushing. You can feel your chest tightening, your breath quickening. The hissing sound is getting louder, or maybe it is just your imagination. You cannot tell. You are so tired, so mentally drained. You just want to go home. You just want to take off this suit, to breathe fresh air, to hug your family, to forget about viruses and cytokine storms and deadly leaks. But you cannot, because the choice is yours, and it is a choice that could mean life or death, not just for you, but for millions. Your gloved hand hovers over the red alarm button. It is cold, metallic, a lifeline, and a curse. Press it, and you face 14 days of hell, wondering if you are already infected. Do not press it, and you risk everything. Your life, your family, the world. The hissing continues, a constant reminder of the fragility of your protection, of the monsters waiting outside your suit. You close your eyes for a split second, and you see your family's faces. You see the lab, the vials, the viruses. You see the cytokine storm, the hydrophobia, the slow, painful death that awaits you if you are infected. You open your eyes again, and your hand is still hovering. The clock is ticking. The pressure is absolute. There is no going back. This is the ultimate breaking point. This is where you decide, fight or flee, survive or surrender. The pressure is absolute. 99.9% have already broken. At which level do you quit? Drop your breaking point in the comments. Let us see who survives the filter.